Thank you, Jennifer, for that introduction. I think that looks like we've got a large group with us today, and there's some more coming in. You know, each of you out there support a different offering in the market, and some of you work for companies that provide software, others hardware, and others services. And I think just to start out, what Jeremy and I would like to do is get a read on what you personally support, so we can get a sense of the group. So Jennifer, if you could send out a poll to the group, select, and when you see the poll, select just one of the options, either software, hardware, services, or all of the above. So if you could push that out. So Jeremy, while that is coming in, has troubleshooting always been an issue, do you think, or has it gained popularity recently as a means of improving efficiency? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really think it's definitely grown over the last couple of years. Definitely, we've seen it from the changes in technology. Moving from our old file server programs, we definitely had to up the ante a little bit and figure out how to be able to answer those questions. So not just us, but a lot of vendors that we deal with, it's become a bigger deal, I think, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. There's, you know, what we've seen is that I think it's always been an issue, but in the last few years, you know, companies have realized that there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained and things to be done through, you know, kind of the troubleshooting vehicle, if you will. So, you know, it has become more and more of an issue. So, Jennifer, how are we looking on those polls out there? Do we still have some coming in?
We have 40% in software and 46% in services and about 27% in all of the above.
Interesting, interesting. So we've got a few hardware folks out there, you know, a lot of software and a lot of services. So, and probably some of those services support that software. So that's interesting. You know, thank you for that feedback. It really kind of helps us as we start to walk through some of these issues that we're going to look at today. So the topic of discussion today is around troubleshooting and how it impacts customer satisfaction and customer service, and in fact your whole support program out there. And there's really three main drivers to customer satisfaction. There's time to resolution, and clearly, you know, troubleshooting has a great impact on that. There are the service skills, basically the communication that their engineers are having with their customer. And the surprising one is always employee satisfaction. And, you know, why would this impact customer satisfaction? Well, it turns out that the engineers, their satisfaction and how they feel about their job, either positively or negatively, turns up in the tone of their conversation, and that in turn is picked up by the customer. So that becomes, you know, very interesting. Let's go and take a look at that for a second and send some of those stats, because that really is a surprising one. So if we look here at the stats on that, you'll see a fairly direct relationship between the engineer's satisfaction and customer satisfaction out there. And it's something that doesn't get a lot of attention, but I think is, you know, as we go through this, you'll see that there's a lot of reasons that the engineers may be dissatisfied and how that comes across. Let's go back and look at the resolution time for a second. There are different ways to measure resolution, but at its core, it is really the time it takes to resolve the customer issues. And, you know, different folks measure this differently. They start either when the first call comes in or when the ticket gets issued. But nevertheless, the overall time to resolution from the customer standpoint is really when did they have the problem and when did it resolve. And let's look at what the stats are around that. This has actually a slightly more direct relationship than we did for the engineering satisfaction. And so this is really what we're going to drill down on today a little bit further and see how troubleshooting can affect that. So let's take a deeper dive on some of these issues and see exactly what either poor or good troubleshooting does to both your organization and from the customer standpoint. Troubleshooting is probably one of the most valued, but also one of the most under-trained skills among service professionals. Like customer service, there's a lot of people out there that believe that you can either have the ability or you don't, and it really cannot be trained. Our experience is a little contrary to that, in that we think that troubleshooting skills can not only be trained, but they have a profound effect on the overall support operation and the customer perception. So, we talked a little bit about resolution time in terms of how it's connected to customer satisfaction, but let's look at resolution time in terms of, what else does it impact as an operational impact? Well, probably the largest thing is labor savings. Whether your issue tickets are resolved in a couple of minutes or a couple of hours or a couple of weeks, if you can actually get that done sooner, the percentage of time that you save there has a direct impact on labor and your bottom line in terms of from an operational standpoint. And similarly with callbacks, it costs, depending on the length of your issue, anywhere from $40 to $5,000 to resolve some of these tickets. And if you can cut some of that down, it also has a tremendous savings impact on operations. And the same thing holds true with additional resources. If you need to bring other people into the conversation to resolve the issue, then you're not only doubling up on your labor and time, but there's an opportunity cost associated with that as well. So it gets, just those three things alone have a tremendous impact on operations. Let's look at another three. We looked at employee satisfaction and the impact of that. But once again, what are the other ramifications there? And one of them is turnover. If you have dissatisfied employees, and a dissatisfied employee is typically somebody that's not just upset with his coworker or his boss or somebody like that, but it's also somebody that doesn't feel fulfilled with the job that they're doing. And that fulfillment comes from a sense of being able to do something well. And troubleshooting from a support standpoint is clearly one of the skills that people, if they have that ability, feel good about. It's nice to be the smartest guy in the room and being able to prove that. So, they feel strongly about that. Collateral damage. Are you causing other problems out there? Let me give you an example out of my own life. There was a time I first started as a field engineer, and I had a situation early one morning, like about 2 o'clock, with a large client where they had a printer down, and it was important that they get it up. It was a large and important printer. And so I troubleshoot the problem, or troubleshot the problem rather, and got it down to a board, but couldn't kind of figure out what the issue was. So I decided to swap it out with the printer next door. And so I swapped the cards out, and soon after that, I actually had 2 printers down. Not to be deterred, I tried the same thing with the 3rd printer, and then I had 3 printers down. So this was a pretty painful experience in my own life about, if I would have known better, I could have used a better troubleshooting process and not gotten myself into that kind of embarrassing situation. For the hardware folks out there, unnecessary parts ordering. It turns out that if you're using a shotgun approach to troubleshooting, and you're just swapping things out and ordering things, that 60 to 85% of the parts that are sent back to be tested that somebody used from a troubleshooting standpoint, they swapped something out, much like I did, they end up finding that there was absolutely no problem with that. It's called no trouble found, and 60 to 85% of all the boards that come back, or parts that come back, absolutely have nothing wrong with them. And the cost to actually process those parts is around $3,000 a piece. So it can be very, very expensive. And a couple of other things there. Documentation. Do you have, if you've got to follow the Sun model, and you're sending things from the U.S. to Australia or over to Abu Dhabi for somebody else to look at, what kind of documentation can you send with that? If you're going to hand this problem to somebody else, whether it's in a follow-the-sun model or it's somebody else coming in on the next shift, you need a process whereby you can say, this has been done, this hasn't been done, and what kind of structure happens there. Otherwise, what happens is somebody will pick up that problem like they've seen it for the first time and start at the beginning. So there has to be good documentation and a good handoff, and a structured process for troubleshooting will give you that. And lastly, let's look at lost trust. If you lose trust with your coworkers or your other members of your team, or if you lose trust with your customer, you've lost a lot. Not only does that haunt you for a long time, but it's really not a good business thing to happen to you, particularly with your customers. A lot of you have very personal relationships with your customers, and probably seen by your customers as trusted advisors. And your team members are out there, working with customers. You want to maintain that trust. You want your employees to maintain that trust, because that is really what the ongoing relationship is about. So on balance, what is in the balance out here? Well, firstly, customer satisfaction. We looked at a couple of statistics on that, and so the time to resolution and is really a big part of that. So operational efficiency. We just went through some of the different aspects where we're looking at how does that impact me operationally. And if you've got more escalations than are necessary, if you've got the resolution time there, handoffs, additional employees, callbacks, all these kind of things really impact your efficiency and your ability to support your customers in a strong way. We've dealt with the lost trust issue with coworkers, and then also talked about the morale there. All these are fairly major, have fairly major impacts on not just how you feel at work every day and how the folks that work for you feel, but also on your bottom line. Let's reach back out and get a sense from the group on what kind of issues that they're facing out there, Jennifer. So let's take a look. What are your top 2 troubleshooting issues out there? And we've listed 5 out here: resolution time, handoff or documentation, general operational efficiencies, trust issue, and employee satisfaction. So if you could pick 2 of those and give us a little feedback, that would be wonderful. So Jeremy, you got into this for a reason and decided to train your people. What were some of the primary issues that you were facing when you decided to adopt a formal troubleshooting process?
Our biggest one actually is right there at the top of the list, the resolution time. When we made some changes to the technology we were dealing with, we started measuring resolution time in days, and a couple of instances weeks. So that's not good when the return is kind of due to the IRS. So that was our biggest deal, was resolution time. We're now to where we measure case time in first contact resolution and measuring case time in hours situations now. So the operational inefficiencies that were underlying behind that helped drive that, but the resolution time was our biggest deal.
Well, I guess if you're in the tax business, you really don't. Your customers really want you to get that resolved fairly quickly.
They kind of have that looming deadline, so yeah, they're interested in what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. So Jennifer, what do we have out there in terms of some feedback?
Wonderful. It looks like we have 61% says resolution time, 47% says hands off, 49% is operational inefficiencies, 18% lost trust, and 20% is employee satisfaction.
So this is really quite fascinating in terms of what those statistics are. Would you find this a surprise, Jeremy, in looking at some of these statistics?
Not really, because I mean it hits my top two. So I kind of like with that the handoffs documentation. We don't have the follow the sun model so much, so that's not as bad for us. But it's still an issue for us because we need to escalate issues. We want to make sure everything was documented, and that was part of our operational inefficiencies.
Right. And I think a lot of folks out there talked about operational inefficiencies too, and that's kind of a cumulative thing. When you look at all the different issues that you can have as a result of poor troubleshooting technique that comes out there. And that documentation one that you mentioned is really is kind of a side issue that it's not a side issue, but it's often considered that way. Folks that are interested in troubleshooting primarily because of the resolution time. But if you look at those statistics, our audience is having issues with documentation and also having issues with employee satisfaction, lost trust, kind of across the board. So that was really revealing, I think, in terms of the folks that we're looking at. So how do we mitigate some of these? We've looked at what the issues are. How do we mitigate some of these problems? And I think the troubleshooting skills, are they different from technical knowledge? And I think it's one thing to be trained on software and databases. It's a whole different thing. How do you go about troubleshooting that software, and how do you break it down and look at those things? It requires some critical thinking skills out there, and we on our everyday conversations and how we think about things, we make links. They're basically thought patterns. When you start to troubleshoot, we need a different kind of thinking. And I think that's something that you really need to focus on and get some training on. So we've both got a common troubleshooting process out there that we as a team can go out and support our customers. We have a common language. We've got some critical thinking. So if we start to pull some of these elements together, then it really, I think, starts to help us a little bit more. So let's look at what the troubleshooting process, in the aggregate might look like. And for those of you that we're not going to just jump into this in a lot of detail, we are going to have some additional webinars at a future date that look at each of these steps and talk about them specifically. But at the moment, I just want to look at the overall thing. We really have problem identification and problem resolution out there. Before we get into this, we want a little bit about critical thinking, but then let's look at the 4 steps around problem identification. If you've been around for long, you really want to verify that your customer actually has this problem and it's not a user error. But following that, what is the definition of the problem? You want to be able to define that problem, and that has a number of different benefits associated with it. If I've got a good problem definition, it both keeps me focused and it reassures the customer that I'm actually working on the right thing. So the very first step really is, trying to get a good grasp of what is it that we're working on, and that will act as our compass as we go forward. Then, what kind of skills can we provide the engineers to help isolate those problems? And once you've gotten that down, how do we identify the root cause of this versus a direct cause, but not necessarily the root cause associated with it? So those are 4 steps around problem identification that sequentially take you through the process of identifying what it is. Now, if we flip over then to the problem resolution side, let's say I absolutely know what my problem is, that I may have some other issues here. There's all kind of ways of solving that problem, and I have to justify that solution. How much money do I need to spend on this? Does it involve other team members or other teams to put together a solution for that? Are there other things I can fix when I do it? And then the last step then, of course, is resolving the problem. And so if you talk to engineers that have been around for a while, they'll tell you that finding the problem is the hardest part of it. Once they've found it, then once they've isolated it and know that root cause, then it's a lot easier to find out what that problem is. If you're dealing with tiered systems, oftentimes you can skip a few steps here. So if you've got a good knowledge base, then 80 or 90% of the problems what we would call known problems with known solutions. You just need to get to being able to isolate the problem, identify it. You can look that up in the knowledge base, and somebody has actually resolved that problem for you. So your Tier 1 people will take care of, they just need the skills to get to what the problem is, and for the most part, they can solve those problems. Having a good troubleshooting process really helps that. If you talk to Level 2 and Level 3 people, they will tell you that about 40% of the problems that they get could have been solved by Tier 1 people, and they were escalated unnecessarily. So, having the skills to do this is a real benefit for everybody. Let's, what kind of results, can you expect from being able to go through this? Well, apart from the operational efficiency that we looked at and some increased satisfaction from our clients, those are the biggies. So, the typical results that you might get, depending on what metrics you were using, is you may get a 5 to 9% improvement in time to resolution. From a labor standpoint, that is significant. If you've got a small or a large organization, that can impact it. In the CSAT, we typically see anywhere from 4 to 8%. We have some clients that have higher, but mostly it's in the single digits that you see it out there. But if you're a large organization and you get a 4% boost in your CSAT, that is millions of dollars of improvement for you in terms of ongoing relationships with your clients. So we really recommend that you actually lock in on a couple of metrics when you go into this, and that, not necessarily these metrics, but you choose the metrics that you want as you go forward. So I'm going to leave this for a second, and I'm going to introduce Jeremy in a few minutes. But before I do that, I wanted to kind of frame the program that Jeremy went through and Corptex went through to actually get the recognition both for the individuals and for their centers that they were looking for. It's not just about getting the folks the skills. We can do that. The other side of that coin is giving them the recognition. And TSAA uses this program to use for certifying their members both on an individual level, at a center level, and at an enterprise level. And many of those members have gotten great benefit from this and decided to go down that route and do it. And so, Corptex chose that route to go down, and as you can see, they've got at least 90% of the individuals that have been certified and got recognition. The department's been certified, and indeed, Corptex itself has, for the last 3 years, and now heading into their 4th year, been able to maintain a support staff excellence certification, and I think that they have used that to their advantage. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out as an additional recognition, because I think towards the end of Jeremy's discussion, he's going to show some things that they benefited from. So let me now turn this over to Jeremy. Jeremy is with, as I mentioned, with Corptex. He's been working on this for the last 3 or 4 years, has done a super job, and been able to take their organization through very stable stages and get the support that they need for their customers and also get the recognition. So Jeremy, thank you very much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Malcolm. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about our story and about all the great things that we've accomplished together over the last couple of years. So, let me just make sure that I tell you a little bit about us so everybody kind of knows what we're dealing with. Like I mentioned earlier, we're a tax software company. Business process and workflow automation is our big deal, with a global ERP system where we support tax returns for on a global scale. We've got a few hundred employees that are located throughout the U.S., primarily in our 3 offices in Texas, Illinois, and California. But we've got a lot of home-based agents as well, both in our services organization and in our support staff, and even actually in our development group. A little bit about our support organization. We got about 88% of our support staff are end-user application support, and they're accounting professionals. You may consider, most people do, accountants as somewhat intelligent people, but the interpersonal skills they've never really been known for. Those are important to be able to solve the problem. So, we wanted to make sure that we were able to help our staff get along better with customers and troubleshoot those problems as well. So, on average, our average case talk and research time is, as I mentioned, is measured in hours rather than minutes, and we handle a few hundred inquiries a day is kind of our model. So, I mentioned our resolution time is measured in hours. Jennifer, I think you were going to put up a poll for everybody about how they measure their resolution time.
Happy to do that.
So, Jeremy, this resolution time issue is a hot topic out there in terms of how it's measured and whether one should do it. Do you find it's an adequate measure of how well the customer is being served for you?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we don't track the first contact resolution necessarily as closely. We track it, but it's not our big key. Our big key that we one of our big stats that we report to executive management, and we see a real close tie to it in CSAT, is the resolution time. We track our 24-hour turnaround time is what we really track.
Okay. And so, so for you, your customers pretty happy if you can get this resolved within 24 hours.
Yeah. We've got some that expect the quick chat of how do I do this and click a button, and then we've got others that are really surprised that you can answer an ERP question within a couple hours.
Okay. So that's really good. So if it's an educational issue, you can take care of that fairly quickly. But if you actually have an issue with the ERP, then it requires a little more digging in and getting into that portion of it.
Yeah, definitely. That's the big key behind ours when we're actually looking at what's going on and why isn't it doing what we expect it to do.
Great. So Jennifer, what do we have out there?
It looks like 2% said they measured in months, 6% said weeks, 41% said days, 35% said hours, and 16% said minutes.
Well, it looks like Jeremy, that this is your audience because you were working in days and moved it to hours, so there should be some interest there.
Yeah, it's kind of nice that we're not the oddball out as accountants again. So, so yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how we fixed our situation then. So, we actually launched the customer support training in 2008 with Impact. All of Malcolm's team's been great to work with, and like I said, we're mostly accountants. We've got a few software people IT technical people, which they're pretty close to accountants in those interpersonal skills traditionally. I know there's a lot of individual results that are different, but so we went through that soft skill training on how to communicate, and we actually saw a wonderful result immediately in courtesy and professionalism scores, along with a little bump in our CSAT overall. But we knew we had some other weaknesses still to fill, especially watching some of the other skills or the other survey scores. So first quarter of 2009, we launched the Diagnostic Troubleshooting, and we saw some great results kind of off the bat with that, and I'll share some of those as well. But let me tell you a little bit about some of the implementation issues that we faced. It was nice that we didn't have to face all of those issues. The number one reason I've seen projects fail, no matter whether it's training skills or any other project that I've been involved with over the years, the you don't get executive support, and the project is going to probably hiccup at that, or at the first hiccup, is going to be in trouble. So we were really excited because our vice president in over operations and support was a champion of the program. So he really got behind us, went through the training himself, so that was great. And that's the other part about it, is making sure the entire management staff is involved in it. I've been involved where projects before where most of management might be excited about the program, and it only takes one manager to kind of influence the this is a bunch of hooey aspect, and it drags not only that individual's team down, but it can spread throughout the organization. So we got our whole management team involved. We trained all of our management team, got them through some coaching skills while we were at it, and really were able to get the whole group involved and got everybody excited about it. So that was really kind of nice. We had issues with trying to get home-based agents trained. That was another big deal that we faced. CBT training is great for home-based agents, but it really doesn't have the interaction necessary. The blended learning offered by the Diagnostic Troubleshooting Program really gives you that interaction. But we faced the issue of how do you train everybody during budget travel restrictions back in 2009. So what we did was to launch the blended program. We would do the online portion launch it on a Wednesday and Thursday, and let the reps work on it during a scheduled time. So we didn't have everybody out of the support system at the moment. And then on Mondays, we'd get a chance, or actually I guess the rest of the week, the reps would get a chance to begin to use some of those skills. And then on Mondays, we'd get together in team meetings throughout the day, breaking up the various teams, and have a chance to interact and go through some of the reinforcement of the skills through WebEx sessions. We were really able to have that interaction, discuss what each individual was able to take away, and even do some role playing. So really appreciated the impact that the blended module made. Some of the things about adoption of the program, I mentioned, making sure that all your management team is really excited. We had reps that had been in the business for a long time and had a way of doing things. But as I mentioned, the technology is rapidly changing around them. We had an old file server system when I got into business, and now we're running database and application storage. So they had to learn a new way to be able to keep up. So what we talked about during each process was just look at one thing they could do that they could improve. And one of our reps actually found that if they try the simple stuff first, they might be able to do some things. And turns out they were able to drop their escalation rate by 10%. They were started doing the simple thing as opposed to document everything and throw it up and see what happens. And another rep that began to realize that if she documented in her case notes what she was doing as she went along, she remembered to undo the things that weren't relevant to the solution. And her rework cases actually dropped by double digits each month for the quarter where we tracked that impact. So it was definitely great. One of the big things I always mention is if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. So people got interested in making the change. we had another rep that came on board and had been a user for years. And she thought she knew everything because, like you talked about earlier, it was a lot of knowledge on the product, but how to apply that. So she learned this methodical process that we taught through the diagnostic troubleshooting, and it helped her actually learn to become a support rep as opposed to an end user, and really got some great satisfaction scores out of her turnaround almost immediately. One other thing we did was we were real good about solving symptoms. Customer called us, we fixed that problem, and then they'd call us back on the next problem, and we'd watch them struggle line by line through the returns. And you can actually see what one of my reps told me directly after being using the program for a couple months was, the fact that she began to start looking for the underlying direct causes and not have to go back through systems. And not only that, but she was able to document some things that other reps were able to use as knowledge articles and help the entire team. One thing as well, once you finish the program, we want to make sure that we maintained how we went. So before we launched the program, each rep worked through things in their random series of, well, what do I want to try this, and let me think about that because this popped into my head. And after the program, they focused on the processes that we taught in each session, and they began to eliminate escalation simply by focusing on, was there really a problem? By reviewing what the customer was asking, following those symptoms described, and evaluating their test plan, they were able to determine how to guide the customers to better usage of the system. So we started getting a lot less of responses back from development of, well, it's working as designed, and oh, by the way, support should know that this is the way that works. So that was really nice because we increased the view that development had of our staff, and we followed up on with the staff regularly. Again, it's difficult to interact with remote staff, which half of our support staff is home-based agents. But what we did was, instead of just putting posters up in the office, we actually put kind of fun posters out on our SharePoint site where they look for daily updates about what's going on in our organization. And then our managers that discussed certain topics with each rep in their biweekly one-on-one meetings. So, we really pushed the follow-up of the program. And then every year in Customer Service Week, we make a big deal about the whole process as well, and make it a big fun program for the entire week. So that's what we faced. Let me tell you a little bit about, I guess, the results we saw. We're committing to understand what our customers need, and so we regularly sample them. What we saw was our skills and knowledge was running at 89% back in 2008. We launched the Diagnostic Troubleshooting Program and immediately saw a jump to 93% at that time. And you can see on the chart by the end of 2011, we were getting scores rating at 97%. So we were definitely seeing that our skills were actually paying. Our skills training was actually paying off, and has continued to pay dividends in customer satisfaction. Our first contact resolution, we spend a lot of time going back with customers, back and forth getting data and asking questions in various random orders. Again, once the staff was trained, we began to get answers a little faster on the first contact. We started with 47% first contact resolution back in 2009. Once we got everybody trained, we were saw the jump immediately to 53%, and managed to reach the 55% first contact resolution at the end of 2011. So while we don't track as tightly on first contact resolution, it's nice now that over half our cases are solved at the first contact. So we're really excited about that. Our bigger jump was in what's going on in a 24-hour turnaround. As I mentioned before, we were running pretty low on that scale. Back before we launched the program, we were running at 71%. We got the entire staff trained and broke that 80% barrier, and now we are pretty close to running 85% every quarter. And so some really exciting things that we've seen tie to customer satisfaction, and really helps in, like I said, with our development team. Now when we escalate an issue to our development team, they don't have to ask, did you do this, or as designed. They look at what our processes are, and they read our case notes, and the documentation already shows that we followed those processes. We verified the situation, and helped identify the underlying cause a little bit for them as well. So focusing in on where they need to spend their time. Not only did our customers notice that we made an investment, and not only did our development team notice the investment, but the nice part is sales actually noticed as well. So they point to our service level achievements when talking to prospective customers. We were just barely above 95% in early 2009, and now we're consistently 98, 99% every quarter, and it's something that our customers are very thankful for, and like I said, our sales team is really appreciative of. So, some definite improvements that you can see by us getting our entire staff up to speed. But there's always things to be concerned about at the end. Many of you probably saw the drop in first quarter for this year and kind of wondering, yeah, what happened there? We finally got hit by the turnover bug, Malcolm. We lost some of our support team members. We didn't lose them because they were unhappy. We actually lost them because all the other departments had noticed us. Sales came in asking for a few. Our professional services came asking for a few. Our development team took some of our reps. And a couple of key customers also said, hey, they're great people and we'd love to have them. So they took a couple of our reps as well. So we've had a little bit of turnover in our organization, like I say. We dropped a little bit in all those categories, but we're back on track to have everybody with our new hires trained by first half of the year. And since it's been 3 years since we started the program, we are in the process of recertifying so that all of our reps get a refresher on the formal process, not just the reminder processes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, my recertification is due up soon too. So, that's kind of where I'm at. The last thing I'll kind of share with everybody, and Malcolm alluded to this earlier, when you make an effort, other people notice. And not only have other customers noticed, other departments and customers, but we're an award-winning organization now as well. TSIA has recognized us for meeting our objectives of having our staff certified and seeing those parameters that have jumped up as well. And also, we actually submitted a couple of applications for STAR Awards and we won a couple. We were finalists the first time we tried, and really recognized for what we do. And like I said, the employees noticed the investment we were willing to make in them, and we were recognized as one of the best companies to work for in Texas, based on the investment we were making on our employees. They were really excited about it. So Malcolm, that's our story of what we did and what we've done and what we're going to continue to do.
Well, I think it's a great story, Jeremy. And regardless of the size of your organization, one of the things that we haven't discussed is how really this, when you provide some structure and you give some support to your employees, it actually makes the company easier to manage and makes the departments easier to manage out there as well. And it's nice to go to work when you work for a company that recognizes what you do, and then the company itself gets recognition. I mean, everybody really takes that as part of something that they have done, And so the different awards that you have from TSIA and being recognized by the state of Texas, this is something that everybody benefits from, and they can, and the individual employees feel some pride in that. So so that's important. So let's turn it back out. I see that there's a few questions come in here, Jennifer. Do you have some questions for us that either Jeremy or I could answer?
Absolutely. There's this one that came in. It looks like Jeremy can respond to, and that is, do you feel that a formal troubleshooting process helps when it comes to managing people?
Absolutely, absolutely. We definitely, with it being a lot of remote agents that report to me, it's difficult to manage that whole situation, and being able to point to the process and making sure that they're following that and they're aware of it. It makes it a lot easier. You don't have to ask a whole lot of the did you questions, because they already know what's expected. So yeah, it makes it a whole lot easier to manage the remote staff and actually the folks in the office here with me.
Now, let me just follow up on that for a second, Jeremy. Does it also making it easier to coach if, in fact, you've got a formal troubleshooting process and you need to help folks out?
It does. We go back into the materials that they received during the training, both from the online portion where they go back in and can reaccess, and we sit down and go over that with them. And it also makes it really easy because we're able to, they know what we're going to discuss. They had it before and know that that's what's expected of everybody.
So they basically know what's coming because they know that they have a structure in which this is supposed to happen, and they know that, you know that. It's really a matter of polishing that up and reinforcing that and helping them out there.
It is. I mean, we're all creatures of habit and slip back every now and then into some of those old habits. But
right.
just a quick reminder a lot of times, and being able to point to something then, and they go, oh yeah, that oops, and they pick up where they left off.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect. Okay, Jennifer, some more.
It says, can you describe the type of support calls that are best addressed by this process? The types of calls that are not addressed by this process.
Okay, you want to give that a shot, Jeremy?
Sure. I'll do my best. The type of calls that are best addressed by this process are looking at the ones we get from the end user side is my area, and the best use of this whole process is it's just not doing what the customer's expecting, and we have to figure out why. Sometimes it's end user error training usage. Sometimes it's truly a situation that we need to go to our development team for, and working through that process, we're able to identify, first off, is it really a problem, and begin to look at what's the best way to solve that situation.
Right. So when you actually have once you identify that it's a problem versus an educational issue, then you can kind of kick into this troubleshooting mode, if you will.
Right. Yeah. That's really it.
Right. So let's take one more question, if we could, Jennifer, and then I'd like to take a few minutes for you to talk about what's next or additional information and how folks might get that.
Okay. There also was one about, Jeremy, you mentioned training home-based staff. How do you do this, and was it effective as training, or was it as effective as training your in-house team?
It really was. We were able to gather as teams, both the couple of folks in the office in each of those teams, and the folks that work on their home, out of the home, through a WebEx that we shared in the conference room, and they were really able to interact with each other and do the role playing. Of course, the online portion is definitely the same for all the reps. That's kind of nice there, but from the home-based agents, we didn't lose a whole lot by not being able to get them to come into our office. We were able to really reinforce the skills and do the role-playing even, because they were able to pretend like they were diagnosing a customer's issue, because they're not face-to-face with our customers.
That sounds like a very smart way of doing that, Jeremy. So Jennifer, I'd like to kick it back to you. If we can put up that last slide. And can you tell us a little bit more? There's some folks out there that wanted some additional information. How might they get that?
Thank you, Malcolm. We will be providing the presentation, and we'll be reaching out to each of you. We're also going to be offering a demonstration to dive deeper into the Diagnostic Troubleshooting Program and really give you some detailed information about that. 2 dates that are available are going to be Thursday, May 31st, and also June 5th is going to be available. You'll be able to let us know which one you'd like to come to and be able to sign up for that. I really appreciate everybody's time in attending this session.
Jennifer, it's not up on the slide, but could you give folks the phone number a couple of times in case anybody wanted to call in either with issues or was looking for some information immediately on that?
Absolutely. We have an 800 number that would be very easy to have. It's 800-545-9003. Again, that's 800-545-9003. You can also contact us through our website, which is impactlearning.com, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions.
Perfect. Well, Jeremy, I'd just like to thank you for kind of wrap this up and thank you for your time today. It's been very insightful, the information that you've provided us. And, we're going to look forward to seeing you up on the podium, getting some additional awards in the years to come.
Thanks, Malcolm. It was a pleasure to talk to everybody today.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in other sessions in the future.